There are many colloquial terms used in gaming that you don't see anywhere else. But where do they come from? Well, here we're going to explore the origins of 10 popular gaming slang words. When you rush blindly into battle, ignoring strategy for the sake of an all-out attack no matter what your team planned, you might be called Leroy Jenkins by the irate teammates you just got killed. The original Leroy Jenkins was a World of Warcraft player made infamous through a video released by his guild. In the video, the others plan out a detailed strategy while Leroy is away getting food. As soon as he returns to his computer, he charges into battle while shouting his name.
Alright, chums up. Ready, guys? Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins!
Oh my god, he just ran in.
The others follow him and are all killed by monsters. Some people believe the video was staged, but either way, Leroy Jenkins remained in players' minds, as did his response to the other players afterwards.
At least I have chicken.
Don't be a Leroy Jenkins. Noob is derived from newbie, meaning someone new or inexperienced, but the term is far more than just a name for new players. It's derogatory. If someone calls you a noob, they're not only saying you don't know what you're doing, but that it's a bad thing. You should know what you're doing, but you still don't, or you show no interest in learning how to do it. Newbie was a slang term from the Vietnam War used by soldiers to refer to someone who just joined the unit, and came from new boy. From there, it was shortened to noob, and eventually changed through leet speak to noob, N-O-O-B, and noob, N00B. So you're struggling with a difficult game and you turn to the internet to ask for help, or possibly vent your frustration. Instead of advice, another player helpfully tells you to get good. Of course, it comes from get good, telling the struggling player they simply need to play better. This is especially common if the player criticizes the game's difficulty as being unfair or unenjoyable. The phrase surged in use as the Dark Souls games rose in prominence, but it didn't actually start there. Instead, it began with the PS3 game Metal Gear Online in 2008. After a few users popularized it, Get Good was added to the Urban Dictionary. From there it spread to 4chan and soon became a popular comeback throughout gaming. Players never like it when a game is nerfed. When someone says that, they mean the developers have changed something to make it weaker or less useful. It's the opposite of a buff. The word comes from the Nerf toy brand and its line of foam weapons. It was first used in reference to Ultimate Online. According to the game's designer, Ralph Costa, they reduced the power of swords in melee combat, and players started complaining that they were hitting each other with Nerf swords. As a result, Nerf entered the gaming vocabulary. Whether you cheese your way through a tough boss fight or defeat an online opponent through cheesing, the meaning is the same. You're using a method that's difficult to overcome but doesn't require much skill. For example, spamming a move that stun locks an enemy can quickly become cheesing. But why cheese? The origin of this term are difficult to track down. One source points to 1994 and the arcade game Primal Rage. If you spammed a move too often, it stopped you and displayed a crossed out image of cheese at the top of the screen. However, online discussions from as early as 1992 used the term cheese to describe certain attacks in Street Fighter II, suggesting the origin is even earlier. It's possible cheese comes from cheesy, which Oxford Dictionary defines informally as cheap, unpleasant, or blatantly inauthentic. The act of using cheap or cheesy moves therefore was shortened to cheesing. On the other hand, it could have been derived from cheat. Either way, cheese has been a part of gaming slang for quite a long time. So, if a common way to cheese an enemy is to spam the same move, where does the term spam come from? In video games, spam means to use the same item, action, move, etc. repeatedly. This connects to other uses of the word, chat spamming, where you flood the chat or forum with the same line or comment, and the useless junk messages known as spam mail. All of these meanings go back to the Monty Python sketch. This sketch takes place in a restaurant that uses spam as a common ingredient. A group of Vikings frequently begin singing about spam. In the sketch, therefore, spam is repeated and unwanted, just like junk messages. Some of the earliest internet spammers spammed chats by using the words to the song, making the connection even stronger. Teabagging, most common in online shooters, refers to a victorious player crouching and uncrouching repeatedly over the body of their defeated opponent. It is a taunting gesture, and in case you aren't quite sure what players intend the motion to look like, let's just say that outside of gaming, teabagging is slang for a sexual act. Without going into detail, the real-life act resembles the way you dip a tea bag into your cup while brewing it, hence teabagging. Teabagging people to taunt or humiliate them in real life is a form of sexual assault. The video game equivalent is a much more harmless gesture, although still considered to be poor taste by some. RNG stands for Random Number Generator. True randomness is difficult to achieve, so video game RNG uses an algorithm to generate its random numbers. This is why the RNG in certain games, such as Pokemon, can be manipulated. Of course, when you're playing a game, RNG can be very important. This leads to the personification of RNG. You want the random numbers on your side, not working against you. Fans of the roguelike game Unbanned therefore refer to RNG as the random number god, rather than random number generator. You want to please the random number god and hope he blesses you with good RNG. The fandom of NetHack, another roguelike, picked up on it and popularized the use of random number god. Alternatively, some people have an entire pantheon and ask for help from the random number gods. Once players personified RNG into a god, it was only a matter of time before someone thought of random number Jesus or RNGesus. It's unclear when exactly the name was first used, although it was around at least as early as 2009. Due to the association with Jesus, rather than unspecified gods, RNGesus is considered offensive by some. Whether that is a factor or not, random number god is the more common of the two slang terms. The word Poon, which has numerous pronunciations including own, pone, or pone, pawn, peon, comes from own. To own someone would mean you have dominance over them, leading to a definition where own means to defeat or conquer someone. So, how did a typo become the more popular term in gaming? There are two theories. First, the 1994 RTS game Warcraft, Orcs and Humans mistakenly describes defeated players as having been pwned. Players found this funny and began to reuse it. In typical meme style, this typo became more and more popular among gamers, hackers, and even spoken language. However, another source claimed Poon was used decades earlier by chess players. If you achieved checkmate with a pawn, the weakest chess piece, you pawned them. Pawn, shortened to Poon in chess, became a general term for this sort of embarrassing defeat. We might never know if it came from own or pawn, but either way, we all know what it means to pawn someone. Have you ever been angry with someone in gaming, or complained about something in a game discussion, only to be described as salty? It means you're upset or bitter, but it carries a connotation beyond that. The implication is that you only feel that way because you lost, or things didn't go in your favour. This is another one that has origins in non-gaming slang. As early as the 19th century, salty was used to mean tough or aggressive, in reference to sailors, nicknamed salts because of the seawater. Salty, therefore, is a slang to describe an old or experienced sailor who has spent a lot of time at sea. By the 1930s, however, it took on a slightly different meaning. In 1935, a writer for the Philadelphia Tribune described Hitler as jumping salty, spreading that jive. In 1938, Cab Calloway included salty in his jive talk lexicon. It meant angry or irritated, while jump salty meant to suddenly become angry. While the connection is not entirely clear, it's possible that this meaning of salty came from people's views of sailors as easily angered or hot-tempered. The term salty never really went that way, and hip-hop music helped to keep it alive. In 2002, it was added to the Urban Dictionary, and Street Fighter IV helped popularize it again. As more players interacted with each other online, salty became more and more common. Videos and memes used it after that, and soon salty was a regular part of gaming slang. Next time someone accuses you of being salty, just think, one of the first people to be described that way was Hitler. I hope you enjoyed this week's list, and if you did, leave a like, and if you want to see more in the future, subscribe. And if you want to see more top 10s now, click here for my top 10 games made by one person, or here on my top 10 games based on books.